Your gut might be aging faster than you are, and that could be why you're feeling sluggish, fatigued, or inflamed. In this video, I'm going to show you how your microbiome shapes your mood, your metabolism, and aging, and how to rebuild it with the right probiotics, foods, and lifestyle strategies that actually work for you. What if I told you that the secret to healthy aging is not in a cream or a pill or a potion, but it's actually in your gut? Believe it or not, your gut holds the key to the fountain of youth. I'm not kidding. The research is there. It has evolved over the last few years, but people in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine have been talking about the importance of gut health for thousands of years. Here's what's happening. Right here in our gut is a population, a sea of bacteria. They come together to form what's called the microbiome. That microbiome is determining every single thing that's happening with your health. For example, there are gut bacteria linked to how we feel or how we think, how we look, what our heart health is going to be, what our hormones are going to do, or even our risk for inflammation. So, understanding gut bacteria is something that everybody is interested in. We have researchers studying many different strains of bacteria, trying to understand how they all work together and what's going on. I actually started diving into this conversation back in 2014, almost a decade ago. It's hard to believe that because we were seeing in practice how changes in the gut, changes in gut bacteria in particular, were changing patient outcomes. Their numbers were getting better, they were feeling better, they were losing weight. So many different stories to tell you. I'm not going to bore you with all of that right now. So, probiotics now have come on the scene. Western doctors are talking about them, conventional MDs are even prescribing them. There have been so many different forms and formulation. And I feel like compared to a decade ago, everybody is either taking, talking, or at least thinking about a probiotic. But what does that really mean at the end of the day? And what does it mean for you? Here's what's happening in sort of the conventional setting. What we see is probiotics being used for different conditions, but being used in a very generic way. For example, all children end up on some form of bifidobacteria. That is a particular strain of bacteria. All women end up on Lactobacillus acidophilus, and all men end up on a variety of Lactobacillus strains just because. But that is not a targeted approach to probiotics, and it's actually not in alignment with what's happening in the research world or what we see happening in practice. Behind the scenes in the laboratories and in research and clinical trials, they are slowly, methodically finding how one particular strain of bacteria is implicated in a particular function. So, for example, the future of medicine may look like you take this strain if you have diabetes, or you take this strain if you have rheumatoid arthritis, or this one if you have ADHD. Now, we're not there yet from a research and from a conventional practice standpoint. But when we flip to what we see in our clinics at Whole Plus, we are doing a lot of this testing and able to do some of this matching at the level of the information that we have today and slightly beyond. And I'm so excited about that because this is really where we can impact health in an amazing way. Now, let's get back to aging. What happens with aging is as the hormones drop and as you see the gut slow down for different reasons, in turn, the bacteria population is changing. And as that population changes, that's where, again, we see the inflammation, the change in nutrient absorption, and so much more. It's partly responsible for things like osteoporosis. It's partly responsible for declining metabolic health. And it's definitely responsible for dementia and some of the cognitive fallout that we see as people across the decades. So that's what we know about probiotics and aging, and that's what we understand today about probiotics and aging. But in practice, there's very little the conventional practitioner has available to them to do. So when we flip that switch, right, or we try to bring everything together as we do at Whole Plus and part of my passion and mission, we're able to take what we know, what's happening in the research arena, but we can also be super creative in terms of testing and understanding what's going to work for you. So we're able to tease all of that out and really develop a plan for healthy aging that includes a huge focus on gut health and getting the healthy bacteria in. Now, one of the things I like to talk about in this Whole Plus plan is how do we begin this holistic plan? And it doesn't begin with always taking something, right? Yes, that's helpful, but the day to day habits are sometimes so much more important than the stuff you take. So, we have to start with a healthy eating plan. That becomes very important to start out with. One of the things that happens when we age is that the gut does slow down. So, what do you need? You need more fiber, right? You need more forms of soluble fiber. The lack of fiber and the lack of gut motility change those gut bacteria and shift them to one that we, as doctors, nerds, whatever you want to call us, call pathogenic, right? Meaning they're going to be more prone to causing disease. So, a healthy plan for aging or anti aging that uses probiotics understands that there has to be fiber involved in the diet. Now, the second pillar of that diet for healthy aging and really supporting proper probiotic or proper microbiome diversity is getting in these fermented foods. So here I have kimchi. I can smell it, trust me. But kimchi has been used in many cultures for a long period of time, along with other fermented foods, right? Like sauerkraut is when we talk about yogurt that's made at home, where you start with the starter. Many of these fermented foods have been prescriptive for thousands of years as a solution for good gut health, right? And they're a part of really reversing the aging spectrum. In fact, after doing the 21-day belly fix plan, so many patients came and said, "Oh my God, I think my wrinkles are better." And it wasn't in their head. It was simply the fact that taking these fermented foods does in turn reverse inflammation and improves nutrient absorption. So at the end of the day, increasing what Chinese medicine would call your qi. So fiber, fermented foods, very, very important piece of this puzzle. Next, we have to talk about fats. So this is something that I am seeing a problem with across the decades in our children, all the way through our seniors, where it's not just that they're not getting enough healthy fat. That's one part of the problem, right? They're not getting enough of things like avocado or MCT medium chain fats or omega-3 fats or omega-9 fats, some of these fats that we've talked about over and over again. In fact, I talk about fats in this particular video. Check it out if you want to learn more about different sources of good fat foods. But here's why fat's important when we talk about aging in the gut. So fat supports something called butyrate. If you don't have enough butyrate in your gut, then in turn, you're going to have bacterial imbalances, meaning you may overproduce yeast or candida, which leads to high histamine, leads to many different infections, insulin resistance, all of those other things. So we need this fat, but there's a two-part story to fat. You also need to be able to digest fat. So taking in things like digestive enzymes to digest fats appropriately can be helpful as well. Now, fats, fiber, fermented foods, and then definitely things like antioxidants just to improve the overall energy in your food is something to think about. In fact, I almost want to do some sort of graph or tool where instead of thinking about calories, right, because we're so used to associating calories with weight gain and things like that, instead of thinking about that, thinking about the vital energy each food has, right? So something like these berries have a lot of vital energy. Fat has a lot of vital energy. Clean protein has a lot of vital energy. All of that is at the end of the day going to be easier to digest and then easier for your gut to move through and promote healthy aging and even to a certain extent be anti-aging. So these are some of the foods that you need to be taking in for a healthy gut to really promote bacterial diversity, which in turn prevents aging or prevents rapid aging and reduces inflammation and reduces the other concept that we often talk about around aging, which is oxidative stress. In fact, those two concepts, oxidative stress and inflammation, are the two things that make us age very quickly. Okay, now sometimes you can't get all these foods in, right? You're on the road, you're traveling, maybe you've got, 20 different things to go to, whatever it is, life gets in the way. So that's where taking things that support the gut and have some of these key ingredients and encourage bacterial diversity is so important. So that can include something like the belly fix, which has pre and probiotics in it to support the gut. Also has digestive enzymes, also has glutamine and collagen, which kind of help rehab that gut lining. Spirulina, again, to increase energy or vitality. And then taking a probiotic orally can be helpful as well. Many different probiotics on the market. I get asked this question all the time. Here are some general rules. While we do, at the end of the day, we'd like to be more prescriptive by using testing. So in our clinics, so this is where the clinic hat comes on, right? You've done the work at home probably, or hopefully using some of these things, but maybe you're still not quite where you want to be. Well, then it's time to test. So what we like to do is test nutrients, test your microbiome, and understand where you may be deficient. helps support that with a correctly matched probiotic, and that in turn leads to a good gut plan that is also anti-aging. So putting all those pieces together is really important and part of the whole plus way. So we honor the research, we honor the science, we try to stay up to the science and understand where it's innovating to, but at the same time recognize that many older systems of medicine and cultures had the food-based remedies already there that we can latch on to and then support ourselves with other things to take for a healthy gut. The concept of aging and anti-aging is usually limited to beauty treatments and potions and all these different things. Instead, let's start thinking about the gut as the key organ involved in aging. The more you support it, the more you slow aging down and even reverse it. And it all starts with the microbiome. All right, I post new videos every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe.